speak together. Can you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag, States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, thank you. Because we have everybody here who could start with some quick introductions for the public, I would appreciate it. So we can just start maybe down here with Mr. Young.
Chris Young, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction.
Sid Fred's Director of Technology.
Lori Schmidt, Business Administrator.
Misty Bushy, Board Clerk.
Melissa Bascom, School Board Chair.
Sarah Vogel, School Board Member from Ackworth.
Kevin Keys, School Board Member from Langdon.
Chaz Street, School Board Member from Walpole.
Karen Schwabe, School Board Member, Alsted Rep.
Krista Rule, At-Large Budget Committee from Langdon.
Welcome.
Gary Neal, At-Large Budget Committee, residing in Charlestown.
Steve Delesio, Walpole Budget Committee Rep.
Suzanne Clark, Alsted Budget Committee Rep.
Chris Baldwin, Charlestown Budget Committee Rep.
Dan, would you continue?
Sure. Sandra Reagan, Special Education Director.
Justin Castrino, principal of the Walpole attendance area.
Lloyd Carter, Assistant Facilities Director.
Art Wolfkin, Transportation Director.
Emma Kobeski, Assistant Special Ed Director.
Bill Barding, Facilities Director.
Jesse Wood, principal, Charlestown Primary School.
Kevin Hicks, Principal and Alsted Attendance Area. Brad Dennis, Assistant Principal at the high school.
Claire, Principal, Charlestown Middle.
Sarah Edmonds, Principal High School.
All right, thank you. Well, our first order of business that brings everybody here is our budget presentation. So if we could turn this over to Lori Schmidt.
Okay. Welcome. So some of this is a repeat from, just a little bit of it's a repeat from our last time. This enrollment slide is, we know enrollment's gone down and we've been working over the last 2 years to try to reflect that where we can with our staffing. As you know, we are spread wide, and so we're limited in what we can do, but it's we can't. The staffing isn't going to directly reflect the change in enrollment because we're spread sparse for our teaching staff. I am still working on some further analysis on this for you. I don't have that in this presentation. So the last time we met, we talked about our primary cost impact factors. This has been updated a little bit. We received our adequacy numbers last Friday, no, a week ago, this past Friday, the 15th, 14th. Our district is losing $978,000 in adequacy aid this year. That is a result of, excuse me, declining enrollment, decline in our free and reduced students benefits, and there were some changes to the formula that impact some of the extra aid that we receive. So while that doesn't impact the budget, it does impact our tax rates because it's less revenue coming in. Our health insurance, this is still at about $650,000 that increased from last year to this year. We have an increase in our special education out of district placements of about $518,000. We have our second year of our support staff contract, that's about $270,000. Our non-union staff members were budgeted at a 2.85% increase, which was aligned with a 10-year rolling average for CPI change. We wanted to tie that into some data that is really reflects also the increase to Social Security benefits. And then, of course, we have our Teachers Association contract that we're currently under negotiation. So the way this impacts the budget at this stage is that people are frozen. So the lane change requests are included in the budget, but there are no step increases for anyone. That would all be determined through negotiations and a special warrant. As I mentioned, in the adequacy aid formula, there are some changes. This year they increased by 2%. They have over the last year or two also increased year to year by 2%. This year they're rounding it up. So our new base adequacy rate is $4,351 per resident student. The differential aids also increased by that 2%. The extraordinary needs grant is based on your equalized value with the utilities divided by your number of free and reduced students. So as that number declines, the extraordinary need number will also decline. And in some instances, I think it made a difference as to whether or not the community qualified. Fiscal capacity disparity aid is the equalized value divided by our total number of students. Our hold harmless grant was decreased to 80% of the amount that was awarded in 2026. And then it's important, I want to note this, that the final calculation, their estimate that they provided, they're obligated to give us 95% of that amount. So, and why that's significant is that I think historically we have budgeted revenue at 100% of the adequacy aid. But as our enrollment and our students that qualify for free and reduced decrease, it impacts what we receive from the state when it's adjusted the following year. So later, when we talk about revenues, you'll see that I'm proposing 95% of adequacy aid instead of 100% in our formulas, because I like to be conservative with the revenue, and the trend just shows that, in my opinion, is the responsible thing, but you might choose to do something different. I want to, let's see. I want to show you this comparison tool. The state has provided. Thank you, Brendan. This is the state overall. You can see that the enrollment overall in the state is decreased by 3,200.
Can you blow that up?
I'm not an Apple person, so it's challenging.
It's also behind you.
So I thank you both for your patience.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, you can see that the base ADM, that's the number of resident students, has decreased by $3,200. I mean, 3,200 students, and that's full-time equivalents. And then the number of students that are eligible for our free and reduced meal benefits, that has also decreased by 1,700. So you can see how this is impacting the state overall. If you come down, you can see that the adequacy grant as a whole in the state, it decreased by $17 million. So, just, you want to keep that in mind, that this is reflective of the state as a whole. And I have these comparisons for our communities that we can look at later. Okay. This is a big picture, a synopsis by community. You can see that each of our communities is losing adequacy aid next year, and this is comparing 100% for 2026 and 100% for 2027. This is what it would look like. Do you guys want to see each communities, or are you?
They're in our binder individually.
Yes, they are. All of this information is available or will be soon. Okay. I do want to look at backwards, sorry.
No apology.
Okay. They lost all of their extraordinary needs grant. which that's not a huge amount here. But the reason they lost it is because the number of free and reduced students, while it was small, it decreases their eligibility for pieces. And then more importantly, the overall property growth value in the state was 8.8%. And if your property growth increased above the 8.8%, it pretty much knocked out your eligibility for the extraordinary needs. The Ackworth property value went up by 23%.
Yeah,
So,
they just did a new,
yeah, it went up pretty significantly, so.
Is it a reval year?
yeah, they just did a revaluation
Okay.
with lots of complaining about it.
Yeah. So I think Charlestown, and we'll see this later in the Charlestown slide, that it was mostly impacted by reduction in number of students and free and reduced recipients. So one of our largest factors for our expenditures, aside from the health insurance, is our special education. So I think I'll turn this over to Xander for the next 3 slides to talk about.
So looking at this, I did put in here, with the decrease we're seeing in the number of students with disabilities, we've had about a 16% decrease in the number of students with disabilities in the district. You would think our budgetary costs would go down, but they're not going down. And the reason is we have more students that have more high intensity needs. And it really has to do with safety. It has to do with the safety to themselves, others, other students and staff. And looking at that, it's out of district placement. So that really is the driver of this. It's out of district placement. So if you go to the next slide. Thanks. So I went ahead and made a chart so you could see, I just put student numbers, the cost, and then the reasons they go out. So you can always assume we're gonna have a few students with medical needs that need really specific medical placements. But you can see the majority of our students are going out of district for safety and behavioral needs. And I wanted you to see the cost. It does range from a high cost down to a lower cost, but on average, it's about 114. I think the next slide will tell us what it is. It's about 114, 310. So when you look at that, and we have an additional 4 out of district placements for next year, 2 students are going to begin attending probably this year. So that'll be like half the tuition rate. They start, let's pretend, after the new year. And then we're gonna have 2 more students that will begin next year. That's where we get the 4. That total increase is that 114, 310 times 4 gives me the 257, 240. And then we added to some summer school costs, gives me the 480,000. And then that gets me to the out of district total cost of 1,395,563.07. And then the additional part is I added in a 5% increase for residential placements, just as a general cost there. So that was like about $16,000 increase. That's where I'm getting my total from for that. So that's where we go.
Can you talk about students that might be placed out of district from the court? Are we responsible for residential? We're responsible for
I'm talking now. We're responsible for the residential right now. If they're placed by the Department of Health and Human Services, we are not responsible for the residential piece of it, or they're not responsible for that cost, but we have no say also in where they're placed and what that placement looks like. These are our students, and those are our students too, but these are our students that we've placed per the
that we
district.
control,
Yeah,
have a say in.
yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I want to talk about vacancies, and I'm doing this right after Xandra's discussion, because there were some questions from the budget committee about some vacancies. We have 5 vacancies in our related services department, and that's 1 BCBA, 1 school psychologist, and then 3 speech and language personnel. Pathologists, okay. So the question was raised, like, is it realistic that we're going to be able to fill these positions? And that's because they've been consistent vacancies over the last 2 or 3 years. The problem being that they provide required legal services. So even though we're not able to find somebody to hire and employ and carry their benefits, we are having to go out to contracted services. So we go to a placement agency and we hire services. So then we're still utilizing those funds. They're just not in the same manner. They're not for paying salaries and benefits. It's paying service for services. And while we're able to meet our students' needs, it's not as efficient as if we were able to hire our own people. So we continue to actively recruit for those positions, and we have the anticipated vacancies posted now. And we actually have two potential candidates for, you know, two of the five positions. So that's ahead of where we have been in the last 2 years. So we're very positive about that. So I wanted to address that. If we look at the vacancies that I reported on November 3rd, we had two paras positions that were vacant. They're still vacant. We have a nurse position in Walpole that's vacant, but we're using contracted services. We're required due to student needs to have those nursing services. So we've been fortunate enough to find somebody to contract their services for the year. We have a potential candidate for next year. And so you might ask, why don't we hire them now if we have a potential candidate? Once we've entered into a contract with a placement agency, we need to fulfill that contract or there's a significant fee involved. We had two custodian positions that were open. We hired one shortly after I made this report, the beginning of November. And then we have a second one lined up that begins in February. That individual has been our student custodian and has been working with us. And he graduates at the end of the first semester and has been recruited to join us full time. So he's looking forward to that, as we are. We still have a bus driver vacancy. Now, that's not to mean that we aren't always looking for subs. We still are looking for subs, but this is a primary driver with a assigned route. It's still vacant. And then, of course, as you know, we are following a different model right now for superintendent, and that position is vacant. It is included in the budget for next year because the board, I think, it's an ongoing evaluation process of the model as it exists at this time. So we don't know what's happening next year, and we need to make sure that we have the position and benefits included in the budget. Another question that was raised from the budget committee was about increase on some of the stipend amounts. I don't know if you'll recall last year when we brought a stipend matrix to the board, which is done annually. We bring it to the board during budget season and ask for approval for recommendation for our recommended increases. I think we had 6, 7, I don't know, maybe even 8 columns. It was getting unwieldy and it wasn't tied to anything. It wasn't anchored to anything. So we went through a process of sending out surveys to the individuals that receive coach stipends, club stipends, lead teacher position amounts, asking about the amount of time and the nature of their services and what they were getting paid for. And we had a committee that reviewed those responses, and they also looked at some other districts to see how they were handling it. And so what we've come up with was this grid. We've compressed it to 4 columns, and you can see it's based on 2%, 4%, 6%, and 8% of the teacher's base rate. So a BA step 0, as it exists in the current contract. And that's where our recommendations are coming and where you saw some slight increases. We had some. Yep. We have some new positions. And let's see, I can zoom this out maybe. No. Okay, so we have some new positions that were added, recommended positions that are added this year. And then we also have noticed that we have noted the items that are grant funded. I'm trying to see, I don't see anything on the screen. So we have some positions that are grant funded. So like we're adding, I think 17 mentors, but those are all grant funded. We have our professional development committee people, our chair, vice chair, and treasurer. They're all grant funded stipends. We have a job coordinator that's a grant funded stipend. We're recommending a new position for our McKinney-Vento coordinator, and that's also grant stipend based. So let's see, we added, sorry. We added, new positions that are through the budget for our peer mentors at the high school. We have a really active, group that, of advisors and mentors that, are working with our existing students, and then they welcome in the freshmen as they come in and kind of give them an orientation. And it's been a lovely program, 2 years? 4 years, okay. But anyway, it's been a really nice program, and so, we feel that it's appropriate to support these individuals with a stipend. We have proposed a new position for our high school testing coordinator. And that's, because right now it's falling on our, counselors, our guidance counselors, and it is a detraction from their primary responsibilities. And during testing, it's a lot to coordinate it all, make sure that everything's proctored properly, and so that would be a beneficial position. We have an art club at the high school that we are suggesting that we have a new stipend for that, and a suicide prevention coordinator district-wide, which is required by law. So those are some of the changes in the stipends that are reflected in the budget. Also in the budget, we do factor in our New Hampshire retirement that has to be attached to those benefits, as well as payroll taxes.
We ask questions now, or just on the
Yeah.
slide, could you add the number, the not obvious ones? I realize football is a lot of people, kids, and soccer is a lot of kids, but how many children are involved, like in bass fishing? If it's 4 kids that we're paying a stipend for that, that's a lot of money per child. So I think non-obvious ones, I'd like to see
Yeah.
numbers next to it.
Okay. Okay. All right, we can work on that. Non-obvious, so if it's been an existing club.
Well, but like football, you realize,
Right.
football coach, soccer coach, basketball, those are fine.
Okay,
I will congratulate
yes,
certainly the coaching staff in the school.
Just something on the bass fishing coach. The bass fishing coach is required to own the boat, carry the insurance on the boat should anything happen. But
Yeah, I'm not disputing that, I'm just trying to figure out what's the cost per student.
okay. All right, so when we look at the overall budget, this is the comparison between what we proposed and the last year budget as was voted in. I know we've had discussions before about how typically not typically, the state report, budget report requires that we are presenting apples and oranges. Because when the warrant articles are approved in 1 year, it goes into the budget, and they are typically not presented as part of the budget when you're proposing a budget, because they're special warrant articles, they're outside of the budget. So in my review and I was working on answering and responding to some questions, and I realized that we have most of our proposed warrant articles for capital reserves are included in this budget, and that's to the tune of about $190,220. They're all sitting in the 4,000 accounts if you're wanting to look them up. Also in the 4,000 account, though, are items that previously we've considered to be capital improvements. That would be on a special warrant article and a use of capital reserves, but we no longer subscribe to that methodology. And so the next screen, I'll be showing you how that's changed. So I didn't want to make any changes for this presentation because you have all received documents that total $37,222,000, and I didn't want to make any changes to that. So that is a correction that will be made as we go through to the next iteration of the budget. You can see it's a 3.13% increase.
But just make sure I understand, the first screen you showed us had all those contractual increases,
Mhm.
which I added up to $1,533,53. Sorry. A lot of money.
Mhm.
So this difference is less than that?
It is. So those were significant drivers that we wanted to call your attention to. there are other factors, so when we prepared the budget, we eliminated some positions or proposing elimination of some positions. So those aren't on that front summary. But that brings up a good point when we get down into the communities. I don't have line by line that totals the exact amount of change for that community or building. I have high points that I wanted to bring to your attention. As you know, I'm gonna answer any questions, that you're gonna ask anyway, but for tonight's, I wanted to highlight the larger differences, variances. All right, so capital projects in July, I believe, or August, we approved a new policy, FA. It's for fixed assets. And it talks about our depreciable life and everything else, but this was significant. We needed to establish a system for identifying capital improvements. So it has to have a useful life of 5 years or more. It must cost 10,000 or more. It enhances the district's physical infrastructure, and it's not part of recurring maintenance or operations. And then there's some examples here. So can you guys see that there? Yeah, that's better, as long as I scroll. Okay. So for Alsted, this is what is currently included in the budget, it's 48,000. That you can see that just about 10,000 of it, 12,000 of it is actually, there are items that would be considered a budget item under our new definition of a capital improvement. Excuse me. So those should actually be reflected in our 2,600 function in our repair and maintenance or replacement costs. Right now, it does lie in the 4,000. They have all been already aligned and apportioned to the correct community. It's just the function that needs to be corrected. So, and then if we look at Charlestown, we have 91,000 for CMS. And then we have 48,000 for CPS. So most of those items, most of that cost are actually warrant articles. So right now they're baked into the budget, which wouldn't typically be the case. So, but because they're in the budget, they have an impact to it reflects an impact to the tax rate at this time, where typically it wouldn't until it had been approved by communities. For Walpole at the elementary school, we have 43,000. Then we have a minor repair to a fence at the primary school, and at North Walpole, we have a minor repair as well. So again, all of those budget items will be moved up into the function 26 so it's in the correct section of the budget, and then all the warrant articles will be removed from the budget, and they will be up to the board to discuss and decide what they want to present as a warrant article to the public.
Art, for example, when you got there right now, the high school, not high school painting, might not go by, but like the Alsted painting, does that go in the Alsted budget? Goes directly in the Alsted.
Yeah, and it is already directly in the Alsted budget for that building for Vilas.
Right, okay, so be sure it wasn't, I understand, it's not a district cost, it's a.
Right. Yes, and so that's how we separate them by area and by building. So we don't have any recommended repairs to Sarah Porter or Ackworth at this time, so there we don't see Langdon or Ackworth on here.
So typically the capital improvements to buildings and so forth go in warrant articles, which are voted on. Now we're moving a significant amount of money back to the budget because of a $10,000 threshold that I'm assuming the board approved. Why wouldn't we just group them all under repairs to Alsted Middle School or primary school and put it all under a warrant article? Because that those warrant articles are funded from surplus or unspent money every year. So we're already paying for it. Now we're gonna do it twice. The budget, by adding it to the budget, it just inflates the burden on the taxpayer.
So the reason that was recommended is that typically a capital reserve is used for project-based and for significant repairs and maintenance. So for instance, last year when we came to the board, we had some quite a list of items. I think it may have been for violence perhaps, but it was ousted. And the funds have been depleted so quickly. And so if you're going to just put funds in and take them out the next year for routine repair and maintenance, it's not really a capital reserve. So, I mean, you can't grow it for a roof repair or a boiler replacement or, you know, anything significant like that if you're depleting it every year.
But the way the warrant article is worded, changed the amount that we send back to the towns via that capital reserve every year. Right, the capital reserves are funded from unspent money at the end of the year. For the last 3 years, we've had over $1 million of unspent money that could have been fed back into some of these capital reserves. So I'm not sure. I understand the financial logic. I don't understand the reality. Is that we're funding it, but we can keep going.
Yeah, I just would like to add that, for me, it was important because a warrant article can always be voted down. If you need paint, you need paint, like,
Yeah.
that's something that's very small
I
that can
agree.
be run through.
That's why we don't put safety articles, safety warrants on the article, safety issues on the warrants.
Right, and if you look at these lists, those are the things that are now put in the budget instead of in the capital reserves.
Lori, what is the capital reserve for each school? Or do you have a list somewhere?
I do have a
Okay.
list. I don't know that I have it linked in here. It will definitely be linked into the folder that was promised for today and I have it.
Thank you.
Just don't have it linked yet. And we have requested, you know, the last 2 years I've been reporting out our estimate. So now we have a schedule that reflects, what our actual expenses were, not what the warrant articles were. Because the warrant articles are always up to X amount. So if we're not spending X amount, we're not taking that amount out. So we have that actual amount in there and we have submitted, a request through this year to everything that's completed to date. Requests have been submitted for reimbursement, so, we're getting there. All right, so I want to go to our reports that you're accustomed to seeing. They're all far too large to reside on a slide. So. I don't like this. I don't know. Okay. So this is our report by location. And it shows our actuals for the 2 years, what was appropriated for this year and what we were proposing for next year. Decrease, increase with dollar amount and percentage of the change. And again, this is going to be linked into all the materials that are available. For those that are listening online, we will be getting this posted to the website soon. I'd say before Thanksgiving. Okay. Our special revenue funds, those have stayed static as far as what we report. We talked about that in fines. Then we have our report by function. Any questions?
No, I just found it had to the tax. I found a document and I found the tax
Okay.
document.
It's coming. It's coming. So anyway, this breaks it out by this report aligns with the report that we have to provide to the state. They have a prescribed format where you report out by function. So this is broken out by function as well. We do break out our some of our activities in more detail than what is required by the state. For instance, excuse me. You'll see under support services, a lot of those are expanded a little bit from what the state requirement has. When you look at your reports that have been handed out, 1200s are special education. We have multiple functions, and I know I did it to you guys again and added 2 more functions this year to break out. And that's because we're trying to be consistent with all of our programs. So all of our special programs, that would be our skills, our steps in Charlestown, and then it goes to LEAP. And Walpole focus is in Alstead. And then our skills program at the high school, we have our summer education separately identified because it was a line kind of embedded in our other special education costs, and we want to be able to readily identify this, and we feel like this adds to our transparency. So I know it can be challenging, but if you lump all of your 1200s together, it should be pretty comparable. Also, when you look at your reports, the transportation is broken out in more detail than for the state. We just do a 2700 line. Okay, the apportionment schedule. I will also be linking, it's not linked into this presentation, but I'll be providing worksheets that show how the apportionment rates changed from year to year. I have number 4 highlighted just because I need to just double check that and make sure that we're good with the transportation one. Then you can see this calculates a tuition rate. That's the tuition rate that's charged in between communities. When you have students going from one community attending school in another community in which they do not reside. They do not tie to the tuition rates charged to those coming from other districts. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this, we have our revenue recap on this side. And all of this flows through to calculate the impact to each town. So it can be a little bit overwhelming, but the equitable education aid that is in here, that's your adequacy aid. This is calculated at 95% of what their estimate was for the year, for next year. And that goes back to the opening conversation where I prefer to be more conservative with the revenues. Okay, and then I'm jumping to where, so important to know when we look at this, that we have 2 communities that haven't set their tax rates. So it's just estimates. And these are estimated rates based on today's data. And so as we refine our revenues, as we refine our expenses, then those estimated rates are going to change. And then also important to recognize is that when funds.
Blow that one up so we can see it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I'm not sure you wanna.
I know, you don't want
I
to.
know.
When there is surplus money at the end of the year, and it goes back, it does impact this, so it will reduce your estimate often. So. I know this is what you want to get down to.
Cannot.
I know. We tried to present a conservative budget. Well, that's because your assessments went up so high. It's a trade-off, right? This is where we're at right now with our budget. So I would like to go through slides by community. So for Ackworth, we had a health insurance increase that was about 19,000, just under 20,000. We have an eliminated position. We have somebody retiring and, again, in looking at enrollments and everything, we're proposing an elimination of that position. And then last year, as Steve was talking about, our capital reserve, the $250,000 warrant article that was parsed out over the different communities. That's not built into, a budget presentation this year, so that's part of, that accounts for part of the difference. Most significant tax impact for Ackworth was that their property growth was 23%, which exceeded the state's property growth substantially. And it impacted, extraordinary needs and fiscal capacity, disparity aid. And that's the amount that the valuation went up. So for Alsted, and for each of these slides, I am emphasizing the increase, and this is the net increase in, insurance. So if there were decreases in some lines, it's offset by the others. So we have our health insurance increase. We have 36,000 of warrant article projects, so capital improvements that should be in the special warrant article that have been erroneously added into the budget. So those would be removed when we massage this budget and make changes as requested. And you can see that's mostly offset by the capital reserve transfer from last year. There was a sick leave buyout last year, so there's a reduction this year by 100,000 because they didn't have that again. And then we eliminated a position. We used the 97,000 because that is what we would have put in were we filling the position. So, and that's based on a static step for everybody in the union. I think it's Master 6 and a 2-person benefit plan. For Langdon, we had a health insurance increase, and then there's no capital reserve. I need to correct that spelling activity for this year. Charlestown. So we had the health insurance increase. Now, 40% of our overall district increase is attributable to our staffing in Charlestown because we have a number of staff. So that's a heavy hit. But I don't know how to get around that. And then we have 115,000 that's in of capital projects that are in the budget erroneously and will come out. We are eliminating 2 para positions that are vacant currently, and then we have some nominal increases. And so while these are not significant dollar amounts for the hours that we wanted to add in and we're proposing add in, it is a change in hours, number of hours. So I wanted to make sure that that was included. The reduction of enrollment and the number of students receiving free and reduced benefits impact the base adequacy, differentiated aid, and your extraordinary needs grant. For Walpole, we had the insurance increase, we have the capital reserve items, and then we had, last year we had 182,000 in the warrant articles that were included, that wouldn't be included this year. And then we have 43,000 in capital projects erroneously included in the
Can you
budget.
explain that a little bit further?
Okay, so last year we had warrant articles, we had a warrant article for
The
70,000 and then
Yeah.
112,000, right? So that's not in that's not apples to apples for this year because it's not in the budget, right? So it's a decrease in our line items that factor into the overall change for the Walpole community. We have $43,000 worth of capital projects that were on that list that we're gonna propose for discussion, that were added to the budget, but will be coming out of the budget.
This year's budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it'll be coming out. Okay, you had reduced enrollment, and again, you had the reduction in the students receiving free and reduced, and so that impacted your adequacy aid as well. For the high school, we have the health insurance increase, we have the capital projects that are in the budget. When we. I don't know if that's right. There are items in there, but I think that this includes, track resurfacing that is not actually in the budget. It was added to our list of, proposed warrant articles later, and that's about 100,000. We are adding a para because it's, required by the student needs. We're proposing the addition of a full-time CTE director. I am working on, the justification for you. It's, looking at an expansion of the programming, so it's a little bit difficult to really tie it into or project how many additional students it will draw in. It's, I think, more about providing, interests for our students and needs for, meeting the needs and interests of our students. And then they're not, transporting them out. So there's some marginal, savings there, but we're still working on that. And then we eliminated, a position that's been vacant for a while. It has been a math position, and then it was converted to a science position, and, we thought we had somebody, but that didn't pan out, and, we think that we need to propose elimination of that position this year. Some other items in our transportation, we have a new lease, and I will, tell you that, excuse me. We built in the budget, or we originally built the budget based on lease of 7 new vehicles. We did 7 last year, we're gonna do 7 again this year. We've had discussions, and I'm not sure that it got reflected in here, of only leasing 3 buses instead of the 7 to try. And we also want to extend our lease instead of a 7-year lease to an 8-year lease. The vehicles that we have currently, are Freightliners, right? Okay, so they're Freightliners, and they have inherent problems with their engines, and we have identified 3 of the 7 that we feel more comfortable, 4 of the 7, sorry, thank you, 4 of the 7 that we feel more comfortable holding on to for another year. We know that we're running the risk of increased repair and maintenance because of that. But we're trying to balance, again, we're trying to provide some options, and we're trying to roll into like a longer lifespan and use of the vehicles. Once we get out of these Freightliners and into a more reliable engine, then we feel like we can go to the 8-year easily. So that would be a change and a reduction in the budget, so I can reflect that accurately. Yes.
Is there any, has anybody been measuring the capacity, what the carrying capacity, not that just carrying capacity, but the number of students that are riding these buses? Do we have any data on that?
So we just implemented this year software that's going to assist with that. We fully rolled out the implementation, a week ago? Where the students it's gonna better track the students and the data, the ridership, if you will. So we don't have, prior to this point, we've taken a pulse point a couple times a year, but it's difficult to, on a daily basis. This will be giving us daily data. But what we're finding is that, particularly in Charlestown, our routes are full. And then we were looking at, Art and I were talking about this right before the meeting started. We were looking at Walpole, because we've had a couple of instances this year where we've had to cancel a route because we didn't have drivers. So we're looking at utilizing the software to see how we can double up routes. So if a driver is out, we can still service everyone. We can't do that on a routine basis. While the head count would fit on 3 buses, the geography is too great to be able to do it and get them to school on time. We would have to shift everybody's start time, including the high schools, so they could leave on time to be able to have the time to pick up the students, and then they'll lengthen the ride time, and we try to keep them under an hour or at about an hour, especially for the little ones, because that's just a really long ride. So we have talked about capacity, but we were actually looking at trying to buy bigger for for Charlestown, because some of these buses that we're going to replace are in Charlestown. at this
Yeah, I've
time.
been to reroute one bus this year already in Charlestown. Because we had one bus show up at the school to unload one morning, and she counted 76 students getting off. So the bus holds 77. So that is full. So I took an extra 18 students off that route and rerouted another bus that was only carrying mid-30s to pick up those extra 18 students. So on an average in Charlestown, we're averaging about 60 per bus.
So, and then you have to keep in mind too, that, we are obligated to provide transportation, so if they're coming, we have to transport them, so we have to build
through
in
eight,
some
okay.
capacity. Yeah, but our bylaws, our articles of agreement require K through 12 or 1 through 12. Is it K through 12 or 1?
Pre-K, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so, anyway, so, you know, our amendments, our bylaws are more stringent than the state guidelines.
Right.
So the buses that we bought, we paid out the lease on, what happens to them now?
They're ours and we continue to use for another 5 years?
Yeah.
6 years?
So a couple of years ago, we bought out the leases on a couple of buses.
We bought new ones. We bought new ones a couple of years
Years
ago
ago. Okay,
and paid for them in full, and so we continue to use them on a daily basis. They're not Freightliners.
okay,
So our entire, only a portion of our fleet were Freightliners or are Freightliners, and it was something that we tried 7 years ago, and it was
right,
not.
so we're gonna do something with those buses,
Oh, yeah, so when we
get a new lease.
get a new lease, we sell back the
We'll
buses.
sell it back to the
Yeah.
leasing company. Okay.
Yes,
And the reason we decided to go with an extra year to an 8-year lease is with the ICs that had the Cummins engines in them. We asked the company what the difference was between trading them in 7 years and 8 years. And the amount of money we were gonna lose by going an extra year was minimal compared to what we're gonna save by running them an extra
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, we don't like Freightliners trucks either, so.
Well, say it's not the Freightliner itself, it's the engine that was put into them.
Yeah,
We're the only bus company around that's still running it, because they discontinued that motor.
Yeah.
And no longer making that motor.
so we are trying to be cognizant of the cost and I abhor the response. Well, that's the way we've always done it. So we're trying to look at alternatives and do things differently in a more cost efficient way. And still meet district needs. So that brings me to facility lease. So a question was posed by the budget committee that like, well, we've never had a replacement cycle and we're starting one now. What are the parameters? What I've heard for the last 2 years is that we always replaced one vehicle a year, and we had, I think, an 8-year rotation. In looking at the data that was provided to me to respond to you guys, it looks like we were doing one every other year. And then we did 2 in a year, like 2018. And so it's been a little hit or miss, but it certainly hasn't been more than 2 years. And it would make more sense for us to do it on a routine basis. And so I'm working on compiling a list with the mileage and whatnot, and the age and what have you, so you know what we have for our vehicle inventory right now. We've deferred replacement for 2 years, and we ran into a problem this year and where we had the undercarriage was rusted out on something and not repairable. So we thought, okay, we'll be creative again, trying to not run out and spend money. We looked to the vehicle that we were using for the mail delivery and courier service between the buildings. And we found out that that was in the same condition. So for our maintenance tech to be able to run around the district efficiently with all of the tools and items that he needs, we have entered into a lease for a vehicle. We just picked it up, I think, Friday or Monday. And so that's gonna be a minor adjustment in the budget, because I think I had put it in at about 15,000 and it's a little under 13,000. We've proposed a second lease in here as well. Now, obviously, if we were to come down to the end of the year and we're looking at substantial amounts of money as a surplus again, I would come back to the board and say, let's buy out the lease from this year, and can we buy a vehicle for next year, use some of the surplus money. But in an effort to kind of equal, like have minimal impact to the budget year to year. That's why we're looking at leases. This year it was a necessity because I can't support spending 60,000 right now on a bus. We have too many on a vehicle. We have too many unknown expenses that are just, boiling under the surface, and we just have to bide our time there. So I think that I want to also address the fund balance. So 2 years ago, it was under $1 million. Not substantially so, but it was under $1 million. Okay.
Before or after the capital reserve transfers, after, so before the transfers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what I would like to point out is that. So we're living in 3 years right now. You're very cognizant of what was returned last year. We're in this year and we're looking forward to next year and building the budget for next year. The monies that were returned last year, the budget was built 2 years ago or more, right? So there's always a timing difference. The years in which the substantial amounts have been returned, we had a budget that was built by a part-time contracted person that didn't spend a lot of time in the district, very talented individual, I know who it is, but he just didn't have the familiarity with the district. And then I'm not sure what the basis was. I am under the impression that it was budget over budget instead of actual to budget and zero-based budgeting for the next year. And then I came in and was barely treading water for the first, I don't know, half of the year at least, right? And trying to get an accurate, DOE out and close grants responsibly. And we budgeted in the same manner. The budget for this year that we're in now, that we don't know what that looks like at the end of the year yet. This budget, we were very conscientious and used zero-based budgeting. We eliminated positions. We did what we could to try to minimize the increase. And now we're facing some uncertainties this year that, hopefully we're gonna come out ahead of the game. We use that same concept in budgeting for next year. Again, we looked at our positions, we've eliminated where we could. We have the challenge in which just because enrollment might be low somewhere, we don't have the ability to combine grades unilaterally within a building. So we've done what we can, and we try to be responsible, and we have to budget based on we have to budget responsibly, but then we also have to spend responsibly. So we're always looking for a good deal and to try to save money and to not find ourselves in a deficit. So I think there's been some changes in the last 3 years, not to mention that ESSER monies are gone. So that was a contributing factor to the return of funds. That I just hope that you're mindful of that as well when you're redoing things. Okay. We are going to go to breakout sessions, not yet. We've broken up the budget committee and the board members and the administration, so we can each go into the 3 groups. So we at least have a budget and a board member with each group. So we can talk about the budgets individually. You can ask your questions, but before we do that, you guys had some questions that were submitted. I received them, was it late Wednesday? Yeah, okay, and over the weekend. So I've been working on building a response, but I don't have it all together yet. And it's not linked into that computer, so.
I do have a question. So on the tax impact sheet for Charlestown, there was an increase of about $2 million, right? I just looked at the direct expenses for the middle school and the elementary school, and they are not that high. Can you tell me where that $2 million is coming from?
2 million or 200?
It says,
So if I look at the tax impact sheet, if I look at the tax impact, the tax,
Tax rate.
tax rate sheet. It says.
Yeah.
The tax rate sheet. It says there's a $2 million increase for Charlestown, on the very first page. Am I, not right, very top,
Very tough.
In the tax assessment.
yep, right across, it says Charlestown.
Mhm.
You blow that
Change,
up.
dollar
please.
change, $59,881.
See it, there you go, a little better.
I could come point it out to you if you need me to.
No, I
You see it? Okay,
see it.
all right.
So
So-
that factors in revenues as well.
That's what I'm trying to understand. So, like, I was checking out the direct expenses from the middle school and the elementary school, and they come nowhere close to $2 million.
Mhm.
So do you have any more data on why the increase is so high for Charleston?
I have not done that level of analysis on any of the communities yet, because I know these are gonna change. I mean, like, I'm gonna get more revenue information from the state by the 15th of December, which will impact this, which impacts tax rates as well. So I will certainly look into it, but you have to remember, it's not, so this is the same discussion that we had last year for multiple communities. It isn't just the expenses, it's the revenues too that impacted or reduction of
Let me understand.
revenues.
I
So,
just want to get a hold on, I want to get an understanding of
Yeah,
why it's
so-
outrageous for Charleston.
so I have that format built out from last year, and that I plan on having that much sooner than the deliberative session this year, that type of analysis by community. So here was your tax rate last year, and here are the factors and how they impacted to get you to your tax rate this year. So I will be doing that. I don't have that information there.
Okay. So you think mostly this is revenue, though?
I think that's a good portion of it.
$978,000 worth.
Yeah.
But do you realize this is really tough to swallow, right?
I do, I understand that, and I
If you go down
compiled
to the one where it
numbers.
shows.
I understand. I just wanna-
Passenger.
I know.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, no, I know it's difficult to
But
swallow.
if you go to the slide that shows the increase per 100,000,
I don't have that in here.
nope, you did.
you said about the next section.
Maybe it's the next section,
Same thing.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there it is.
Okay, yeah.
That's the number to look at.
Yeah.
And so typical home in Walpole is about 300,000, somewhere like that, so you're asking people to absorb another $400 or $500 on their taxes.
Mhm.
It's out on the school district,
1,800 on mine,
yeah,
like,
it's,
that's.
yeah, it's just, it's gonna be
I'm gonna
terrible
cry,
to
but
swallow.
it's okay.
And we're aware of that, and that's why we try to be responsible with what
Yeah,
we propose.
I don't know. Something's gonna have to give somewhere.
Did you have a question, Chris?
Yeah, just, in terms of, the labor question. It has to do with, so. As I was going through the information real quick, I noticed that medical costs, we know is going up, so most employees, we're paying about 35,000 per family.
Mhm.
And, so is the pension 19.23%?
It is,
Is that,
that's mandated by the state.
that's mandated?
That's mandated.
A mandated 19.23%
Yes.
pension.
Yes, so that doesn't go to the individual. So the way it works is the individuals are contributing 7% from their checks, which obviously isn't our expense.
Right.
And then the district for teachers, it's 19.23, and for employees, so you don't have a teaching certificate or don't work directly with these students, you're classified as an employee, and it's, I think, 12.75 or 12.25%.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so.
the 19 doesn't include the 7.
No, it doesn't. This
No,
is
no.
in addition.
Yeah.
But it's going in, so the state pool is insufficient, and they have a 30-year plan to recoup and reestablish the funds to where they need to be. And so they stopped contributing. I think they used to contribute like 35% several years ago, and they stopped and pushed it out to the local.
So, but the pension's an exorbitant number.
That's not the amount that goes to the individual. It goes into the pool to restore it and then
Out
when
of the
you.
district though, right?
No, that's not even, that's not attributable to us or our employees or anything else. That is the pool for the state for teachers. Or for group 2, I think. And then when you retire, it's formula based on your
Okay.
salaries. So it's the 19% is not going to the individual. Nor, again, nor does the district get any credit for it in any way.
But it's showing up as
It's our expense.
our expense.
Yes, and that's, but they've reduced it now for 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row. I mean, it was 21%, I think.
Because it's healthy.
Yeah. Healthier.
Too many people retire in 1 year,
Yeah.
then you go back up again.
Okay, and then there's a 403B match.
We do have a 403B match that's 25% of what the employees contributed. So, I'm just gonna run through, I can't project it, but I'm gonna run through and try to answer some of your questions from the budget committee. And then I have other answers. I don't have it all compiled yet. I was trying to get it all into a document with either links or verbiage to address it. So I know that Steve, you're wanting a 3-year surplus history, and I honestly am, I mean, like, I'm not gonna be able to provide meaningful analysis for before I was here. I can surface level.
My guessing is coming all from unhired positions,
Well,
vast majority.
a lot of it, I think, could be because we did shift we shifted as many labor and benefit costs as we possibly could into ESSER. Because the rules for ESSER were different than
Right.
normal grants. So even if it was built into our budget to try to maximize the use of ESSER monies, there was some shifting, which was allowable. It's not allowable for title grants and for IDA grants. We have to have a planned, approved activity before we incur any expenses. Chris, you've asked about academic scheduling. I do have the current class schedule, and I have class sizes and teacher schedules for this semester. I also have a draft of the program of studies for next year that is going to be linked into the document that I share out. There's a request for vehicles and equipment inventory, and I'm working on that as well. I have all the vehicles. I don't have a solid inventory of equipment. We're working on that.
And who they're all attached to.
Yes, yeah. There were questions about special education, in the 1,200-110 line, it was observed that the increase was more than anticipated. During I think the summer, it was this year, we proposed a succession plan and we promoted Emma into the assistant director position, which shifted her costs into that role, into that line. We absorbed the money from her old position into that role. We weren't filling the other position. She was receiving a stipend for some coordination out of district placement, I think, no. Extended school year, okay. So, but that was rolled into her salary as well. It had a nominal budget impact. So I've included the justification and the succession plan documentation that was presented to the board. That's gonna be linked into this document. We, I believe, addressed the special ed costs. You wanted something from Xandra. I think that what we've done tonight covered that. If not, please let us know. There's a question about iReady software and was it previously grant funded and where was it? So it was in a different line. It was in, I think it was in function 2123. When we looked at the definition of that function, it wasn't properly coded. So we moved that into the line where you see it this year, which is 2210,650. It was previously budgeted at 94,000, and we assessed the use of it and the benefit of it this year. And we were able to make changes to the contract, so I think it's about 55,000 now. 57, okay. So we were able to affect savings this year, for that. It was never funded by grants. Let's see. You had some general, questions regarding software costs. Nick did a really nice analysis and report, explaining, why, there's that variance, and why they increased. We've always struggled with the concept of gross budgeting, meaning that we would budget for our full expense, even if we have offsetting revenue coming through to cover it. So E-rate is a grant, if you will, for technology and different types of technology, and it changes year to year. And historically, there was some net budgeting that was happening, like, hey, we're gonna get reimbursement for this, so I'm only budgeting for the net cost instead of the gross cost. That's part of the factor. Software costs go up every year. Anyway, there's a
The
link
question was a
to,
little broader than that. It wasn't about cost, it's whether or not there's for me, I can't believe there isn't an enterprise-wide system for schools that deals with all these different programs and everything in one package. There's lots of packages that we're using. And the question was, can any of those be consolidated? Do they all have to be in every department, have unique software and so forth? That was really the broader. of the
okay, that
question.
was not conveying
Yeah, it
what
wasn't,
I
didn't come
received.
quite through there, but I think I added it up, it's like well over $100,000 worth of software licensing going on in the budget, and that's what seems to be a lot.
We spent a lot of time this year, starting in July with our
Yeah.
admin retreat, in looking at the softwares and what we're using. And what best meets our needs, and where could we buy a district-wide licensing?
Right.
I don't think that there is enterprise software out there that's gonna cover all educational needs.
Right.
But we've tried to maximize enterprise software
It just
options.
seems like a high number for this size district.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, there's a link to that document.
Okay.
There were questions about grant writer and how many how many hours would be allocated for this assistance. And the position, the contracted service was calculated to work 10 hours per week, 52 weeks, a rate of $55 per hour. And we're able to allocate 2,200 of this cost to a Title I grant. We're not able to put more in. We would maximize what we could in the grant. And the responsibilities include drafting grant activities, submitting them through the grant manager online platform. And then the CIA director's role is to approve the grants, support development of the activities, and coordinate with the administrators to make sure we're utilizing the funds well. And ensure compliance. There were a question about the maintenance tech, and oddly enough, we had found that this week too. What happened is this year, Joey's our assistant facilities director. Excuse me. Bill is retiring next year, and so we needed to work on a succession plan. We advertised, we had 2 internal candidates, and Joey is filling that role now. And but we have the rest of the year to go. He might decide, man, this isn't for me, whatever. We haven't filled the maintenance tech position this year. We haven't backfilled it. We used, again, similar to what we had done with Emma's salary, is we used Joey's salary to help fund this position. There was a slight increase, going from hourly salary and everything. There was a minimal increase to the budget. But for the budget for next year, we know we're not going to have our current facility director. So we included that in the budget based on what we've discussed with Joey. And we intend to fulfill and hire an additional maintenance tech to fill that role next year. But what happened is, because we had moved Joey into this line item, the O1s, the method one, when I changed information, I didn't catch to move it into method 3. That has been fixed, and that is reflected in your documents that are linked into your index. That didn't change the bottom line, so I did make that change today already. So that's what happened there. Vehicle replacement plan, we talked about that, but I'll work on documenting it better here. Sweeping services, I wasn't sure where the question came from or what it was about because we don't have any sweeping services budgeted in, included in the budget. We don't use as much sand now, so we don't have the need for the sweeping services. We have 2 small buildings that we do sweeping, but the facilities, captures that and takes care of it.
Where does groundskeeping go, like cutting grass and bushes and weeds and?
That's in method 3 as well, I believe, and function 26. There was a question about equipment replacement costs as far as technology goes, and again, the link to Nick's response will address that for you. There's a question about contracted services that seems to be maybe blended with diesel, so I might have to get some additional clarification on that to be able to answer
I
it.
think the question started with all of the vacant positions, whether that money was being used in contracted services,
Oh, okay.
like this psychologist.
So like the nurse, the psychologist,
not right.
the speech, all of those are, those vacant positions are funding.
Contract,
services.
yeah.
Yeah, because
I
again,
think
they're
that's
legal.
what led to the question.
Okay, all right. It got blended with an account code, so I'll try to tease that out a little bit more. And there were some questions about Johnson Controls specifics. We have a lease with them, and so I have a schedule that I'll be providing that. And then we talked about our bus replacement plan, the vacancy line. If it says vacancy in there, it's referring to an existing position, if it's a new position. So I think the CTE director, is that the only new position? I think that might have been the only new position, but it's identified as such. There was a request for justification for the HR assistant that is embedded in this document. There were several line item questions regarding high school expenses, and I have all that information, I just don't have it embedded in here yet. And we will have a fully fleshed out response to CTE program. So I've collected most of that data and I just am trying to compile it all. So you definitely will have it by the end of this week. I'll send it out via email to you all, and this document, similar to the index, I'm trying to really code in links so it's easy to access. And I'm updating the index. There were some things that were promised for today that will be built in there. And as I mentioned, there were a couple of methods that I reprinted. There was also a correction between Walpole Elementary and Walpole Primary. So I made that correction. It didn't change the budget line item, so I reprinted those, regenerated those, and those are linked in, but they're identified as new documents. So hopefully you're finding this a little bit easier to work with than.
I'll say for me personally, the information you provided was the best so
Yes.
far.
Oh, good.
We
Thank
concur.
you. Yeah, try. Keep trying.
It was good. It was very good.
Okay, good. So I think that runs through your questions. And also when I get this fully fleshed out, I will put this online as well so the public can have access to the questions and the responses. So if there's nothing else at this time, I think that we can go into our breakout sessions.
So bring this one, I'm gonna go.
What was that?
Do you wanna put that back up there?
Oh, yeah.
So they know where they're going.
They're
Collaborating on this.
Oh, thank you. You have to look at me every time. You read them. There we go.
What's the goal of our breakout session?
It gives you an opportunity for smaller group conversation and ask questions. And then you can come back and report out to everybody, information that you learned that you felt was important. We didn't have a chance to,
Sure.
I don't know, we can find 3/4 of the room.
Yeah, they can skip between the groups if they want.
No, that's true.
Online, we're just gonna file this online while we're doing this, because it's too different. So.
All right, so I hope everybody found that to be informative and found their questions asked and whatnot. So. Sorry. We had great discussions in our group, so I'll just start and then somebody from the next two groups can jump in and kind of fill us all in if you had something to add. So, Sarah and I were in there with, the high school and with our special ed department. And the biggest part of our conversation was about the early learning center. We all know that this is, a hot topic within our communities. People feel very, very passionate about our early learning center. We know that it's been an incredibly successful program. And so Sandra has brought a really thoughtful proposal forward. And so what came out of our whole conversation is that we'd like to do a public forum for for her to make the presentation, for department to make a presentation, so that everybody can see it, see the reasoning behind it, see what they're projecting for forward data, and then have an opportunity to ask some questions. And then the board will have an opportunity to talk and make a decision about where we go this year with that. So as we've been talking, we're looking at potentially December 1st, which is a Monday. It's not a school board meeting because there are several other things that we need to talk about. So more information will be forthcoming on that. That's all I have on that one. Thank you. Sure. All right, who would like to go in?
Chaz.
All right, Chaz.
We had a good talk. They're all doing fine. Middle school, K through 8. The budgets came down. They're so,
They have what they need.
Charlestown needs space. We talked about the bus routes. I think there's some good discussion to have there about the allocation and the costing. And cost how it goes through. I don't know, what else do we talk about? We didn't really talk about much. It was because we were happy. He's happy, I'm happy. Yes. You were happy, right?
Congratulating principals on taking hard looks at their budgets. I think everybody
Yeah.
except for one school went down. They overcame the increase of health cost.
Yeah.
Because if you look at how far they had to come down to beat some of that, I think it's great. I do think they've done a wonderful job there. But as a total, there's still problems in the budget that we have to figure out how to overcome. Where it sits right now, I think it's just gonna be a choke on the public.
Mhm.
And I think we have to figure out what we have to do there. I think the other thing too, is the budget committee is gonna hopefully make a recommendation on the special ed, on the health insurance capital reserve. Yeah, so we talked a little bit, very briefly, that there's $700,000 or so in a health insurance when we were self-insured.
Mhm.
And maybe that could be used to help offset some of the budget by releasing that money. Which is just sitting there now, not doing anything. So that might be able to be released through a warrant article, obviously, change the conditions and move that money to offset some of the increase that's going on with the health insurance. Similar, right?
I would love to work on the wording for a warrant article for that.
Yeah.
I think we should have that discussion,
Yeah.
and legal will have to be involved because it's legally set up.
I was gonna say,
VA's having a fit over there.
no, I'm not having a fit because I would love to see something happen with this. For that reason, it's sitting there and can't be touched, which isn't helping any of us.
Right.
So the inquiries that I have made over the last 2 years
Yeah.
is that we would have to dissolve it, and then we would have to have a separate warrant article to recreate something. So I don't think it's a matter of being able to have a warrant article that would just repurpose
It might
it.
be two warrant articles, one is to
Yeah.
dissolve it, one
Yeah.
is to move it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the.
But I think, you run the risk that it's not gonna be approved and it would just be rolled over as a surplus, but that's
Starting
better
the
than
conversation
where it
is-
is now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the other one was, I think, we talked briefly that,
Special ed.
the special ed, capital reserve. Changing the conditions so that if the special ed budget goes in default, that the money could be used instead of the whole district going into default. It's a warrant article to change the conditions, but it makes it better sense than waiting for the whole district to go under or go into default, not go under, but go into default. But to protect the special ed budget better. So,
I know we have had discussion
Yeah,
about that, but it's.
I know
worth
it's been
looking at.
going on, yeah,
I
so
think that makes
we'll
sense.
make some recommendations, I guess, but whatever,
I think,
so. But it was a good discussion, I think everybody,
I learned something.
yeah, we learned a lot.
Joey took that, yeah.
I like the creativity coming from Corey with all the moving around different people. I don't know if I understand it all, but.
I do that on purpose.
Yeah, I figured that. But
You
it's
can
good.
spin your mind really easily.
But it really shows some creativity and how to maximize money and budgets and so forth, so.
I do have a question about the transportation budget. And I thought there was some talk about moving the cost of transportation back to the individual towns. And I couldn't find that in any. in the
So,
budget.
so the, so I, excuse me.
You've been talking a lot.
I know. Um. Yes, there was discussion about it. And I was speaking with Jamie to try to work through some of it conceptually. Because we're trying to affect. We don't have direct drivers for the Voget or for the high school, so we have a driver that serves the community, but there's direct direct expenses for K through 8. And then they drive for the high school too, and they drive for Voc Ed as well. And so in trying to figure out how to allocate that, how to fairly and appropriately allocate that, she mulled over it as well, and then she came back and I agreed with this assessment, was that it seems as though it's method 4 is based on data that I receive from ART annually, which is based on route data, which is based on the number of buses and the individuals that are servicing the miles and the hours and time that are servicing the different communities. So she thought that the method 4 is already factoring all of that in. And so I haven't taken it to the next level. I can still, if we need to do that. But it was logical to me based on the methods and like how we determine method 4 and the allocation for transportation. It's already factoring in all of the components that drive the transportation costs.
So there was a misconception that method 4 was based on ADM, and that is not true, correct?
No, it's utilizing the drivers, the time, the routes. Like ART gives me a really complex schedule.
Sure,
It's
right,
complex in
software.
that it's minutes and, you know, point X miles and like, you know, having to just factor it all in and then to it, yeah.
So my concern with method 4 is that 33% of it goes straight off the top is high school.
Mhm.
So is that factored into the calculation? Is that actually based on the rest of those calculations? Or is that 33% and then instantly 46% of that is charged to Charlestown and so on and so forth, ADM?
So the mile, so when I looked at this last year and I adjusted the schedule, I think the high school is at about 38% based on that data. And the feedback that I received was like, how can this be accurate? And so we all agreed to stay with the percentages that we have used before, the 33. And I need to do a deeper dive. And so that is part of the reason why the transportation method is highlighted on that schedule, because I need to continue to dive into that. Just to make sure that the data is translating correctly over. That is the one section of that spreadsheet with all of the changes where there is no clear instruction or direction at all with it. And some of the language when I initially started, it didn't make any, the words didn't correlate with what it was supposed to be doing or trying to do. And so Jamie has worked through that with me to some degree, but I could probably use some more time with her. I'd love to see that. So.
Would this new software give us the actual data for high school? I know it took a change to the Articles of Agreement. but with this new software, could we get actual usage for high school, so we're charging towns? Correct me, I know like Langdon has like 3 kids that ride for the high school, and we're paying like $23,000 for the high school, right? For high school busing. That was last year's budget, I'm not sure what it
Hey,
is.
but you have more than that this year.
Yeah, well, that was last year, and that was like, that's what we were paying, that's what the numbers I got when we were doing the withdrawal committee. They had 3 students riding for Langdon, Bellini High School. And so that seemed like a lot of money for the kid, for for transportation, so. Do you think, back to the original question? Do we need to think about changing articles of agreement for method 4, because we have this new software, which would allow us to get the actual cost?
I think it's a very good question.
So I guess I would have to work with Art, to see how that would differ. I would presume that the data that he's providing that includes pickup and drop off time, morning and afternoon, and by community and bus number and everything else. I don't think there's any student data or ADM factored into that. It's all about miles and time. That's already baked into what we're doing here. So I'm not sure how the software, I don't know if we will, if it could give us, maybe it can give us a report that's more specific, so he doesn't have to do
Yeah,
a
the
spreadsheet. and I
software
don't
will
have
give
to
us,
do it.
give us actual student data, ridership data.
It's just the high school data, like
Mhm.
she says, gets a percentage off the top, and then that goes into it's figured out by ADM and not by actual usage. Right, so that's the kind of question, we just do it all across the board and get better numbers and get actual usage. So, it's just a question, it's an open question. Because we will need to change to the articles agreement, if we can do that. We would need to get that moving forward.
So I was with the IT, transportation and facilities group. And each department head broke down a little bit more of their expenses and what's gone up. And all 3 consistently said healthcare was a big factor. What I also noted from IT and transportation is their costs have gone up as a result of the tariffs being a factor, like in hardware or IT. And I think parts and things for facilities and transportation, so what I heard from
Our
them.
consumables, our fluids,
Yeah.
gone up consistently.
And Chris has some really good thought-provoking questions about, where can we be more efficient? So I thought it was a really good group discussion.
Anybody else want to add? Is there anything else you want us to know? As we're making decisions. All right, seeing none.
Everybody has a dazed, confused.
I know, there's a lot of information in there.
Hey, the contract that we're negotiating this year, what is the total cost of that? Like now, for this year?
It's, what do you mean, this current year?
Yeah,
This current year is, was it 470 some thousand was the warrant article?
That's it. So unless there are any other questions or concerns for this topic, I see no other reason to continue, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor for the board?
Aye.
I.
All right, well, again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.